Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the Emulation project series. Booting up the emulation machine now. And by the controller in my hand, you probably can already tell this is going to be about the Nintendo 64. We're going to be using Project64. I haven't decided if this is going to be the one that I use in my my final build. Ooh, excuse me. Or if I use a different one. There are several of them out there. Project64 is one of the better ones. But as you'll see in a minute here, there is not exactly a paywall, but you know, this is technically free. You can use it free. But every time you open it up, you're going to see this screen that says, you know, a lot of effort went into producing this, so if you'd like to make a contribution, it would be appreciated. And if you do make a contribution, then you get a license, and you don't have to look at the screen for 30 seconds every time you turn it on. And I might end up doing that. I haven't yet. I certainly do appreciate the effort that goes into producing this software, but it's just something to be aware of. First, let's talk about the controller. So this is the official Nintendo controller. See, it has the Nintendo branding on it there. If you can see, I got my microphone shadow kind of in the way here. This is made by Nintendo. You can buy it currently on their website. You must be a paid subscriber of the Nintendo Online, whatever it's called. I don't know. It's like $10 a month right now. You have to be a paid subscriber to even add it to your cart to check out. It won't even allow you to add it to your cart if you're not logged in a paid account. And also you're limited to 4, which I'm kind of disappointed with. I don't know that I would ever need more than 4, but I'm just thinking like worst case scenario, stuff breaks or whatever, and you know, ideally I'd want to have 4 because there were 4-player games. So if I'm limited to 4, then I have 4 and one breaks or something, then you know, you can see where this is going. But anyway, right now I just have 1. This is the first one of you know, my collection that I ordered, because the Nintendo 64 for me was probably the most memorable. I mean, I played my NES, that was my first console, and then I had a Super Nintendo, but the Nintendo 64, I don't know if it's just because I was a little bit older when it came out and I can remember it better, or you know, it was really a defining moment, not only for Nintendo, but in gaming in general. It's when everything kind of made the jump into the 3D space, and there were a lot of iconic games that came out for the Nintendo 64. The PlayStation also, there's a lot of you know, a lot of nostalgia for me and a lot of fond memories surrounding the PlayStation. I don't have a controller situation worked out for the PlayStation yet. Once I do, I'll be making a video on that. But anyway, the Nintendo 64 is what we're on now. Project64, well, you know, let's continue on with the controller. So this is Bluetooth. It's meant for use with the Nintendo Switch, but since it's Bluetooth, you can use it with any old Bluetooth adapter in a Windows PC or whatever else, as long as you have the necessary drivers. So in my usual style, what I'm going to do is go here to Bluetooth and other devices. And if you've been following me, you'll know that I have to repair and remap these controllers each time I turn the computer on, which is annoying, and I'm trying to find a fix for that. The Xbox controller doesn't seem to have a problem. It just seems to work. But these, they work, but I gotta play with them every time. So we're just gonna go to add, and then I'm gonna hit this here Wi-Fi button, this little button right here, the pair button, until the lights start dancing, and then it should show up on my screen. There we go, N64 controller, It's going to connect. I haven't charged this in a while, so I don't know what kind of battery life I'm working with here. Hopefully enough just to get through the video, play a few games for a little while. Alright. Device is ready. I'm going to close that down. I'm going to close this. And I'm going to go into the options on Project64. And we're going to go to input settings. Now, there are two different drivers that are bundled with this. Let me just look at, first you go to configuration, and or plugins rather. So everything else is fine. For the input, I've used the generic Project64 input plugin, but I've had some issues with like ghost movement from the analog stick, so I use the Enrage controller plugin, and that seems to work better. So now I'm just going to go to options and input setting, and actually I think this one has a built-in yeah, I think everything is, it has a profile for this particular controller. Another cool thing that you can do with this one that I haven't seen with the other ones, the other emulators anyway, is the ability to load and save profiles. So, you know, let's say you have different controller. Let's say I didn't want to map it every time like I have to do with the other ones. I can just load up a profile for whatever controller I'm using, and as long as I did it correctly, it should work every time. So that's pretty cool. But if you do have to remap this, you would do it the same way as you do pretty much all the others. You just go to options, input setting, and then you click on the appropriate button on there, and then the corresponding input on your gamepad. And you can use whatever you want to. You can use an Xbox controller, that works just fine. So let's go to, what is it? I want to play GoldenEye. This is the game that kind of started it all for me. I think that it's probably the first game I played on this and Super Mario 64. But this is the game that I really wanted. So we're going to go full screen. The default shortcut is Alt something. It's not showing on my capture card. It is full screen though. You can see it full screen on my main monitor here. Capture card. Go to grab. Just up the windowed resolution. Refresh rate. There we go. I don't know what happened there. so I mean everything works. This is Nintendo 64, GoldenEye. These controls are so weird. The KF7 Soviet. So weird to play this with these sniper rifle up here. Yeah, I guess that is it. I thought there was a different way to change weapons. Using the C buttons to KF7 Soviet. So it's obviously supposed to be the AK-47. Nice. Ooh, crazy. So, anyway, as you can see, this is GoldenEye running in Project64 pretty much flawlessly. And there's nothing really wrong. And that's to the first cutscene. Cutscene plays fine. Gameplay is fine. There's no noticeable input lag or anything like that. The only problem is my game. Didn't do the secondary objective. Movie too, I was really into the movie. I used to pretend to be a spy and all that stuff when I was a kid. I was really into the game. Lots of fond memories. Actually, recently I was up in Chicago and they happened to have an exhibit going on at the Museum of Science and Industry there. And they had all the vehicles from the Bond movies there, including the Aston Martin that Pierce Brosnan drove in the movie GoldenEye, as well as I can't remember if they're had some other ones, the Parahawk, that was there, and, I mean, it was really cool. Maybe I'll do I took a bunch of pictures while I was there. I didn't record any video, so that would be cool. I don't know how that would go over with the museum. But anyway, it was a really cool time. Seeing all those vehicles brought back a lot of memories. Lots of fun memories. So, that is GoldenEye. We got the game controller. I'm just going to do end emulation. Gex was another one. I spent a lot of time. I think a lot of people didn't like Gex. I don't know. It was cool, but I was a kid and I didn't really know any better. And also you have to think, like with these retro reviews that people do, where they go back and look at games from a modern perspective, you kind of have to understand that they're looking at them from a modern perspective. You know, we've had years, decades since we entered the 3D era of gaming. So there's a lot that's happened, a lot of improvements that have been made, a lot of things that have been played with and perfected, and since the early days of 3D gaming. So you really have to take that into consideration. Would a modern person come back and really enjoy some of these iconic games to the extent that we did? If you're as old as me and you played these games when they came out. What's another one? Mario 64. A lot of people, just take my word for it that it plays fine. Super Mario 64, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, another iconic game. I'm trying to think of which one. What's something I can just play real quick? Rampage. Rush, remember playing that. Star Fox, Super Mario 64, and Super Smash Bros. If you're into that. I was never really too much into Super Smash Bros. But it was there. Rainbow Six. I don't think I really got into Rainbow Six until, I want to say, the Xbox. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I played these more on the PlayStation. I want to say they were better on the PlayStation, but maybe it was just because my experience with them was on the PlayStation. There are some other ones. Was it BMX? Or was BMX XXX? I remember that one. I think that was on the PlayStation. But we'll get into that. Maybe I'll do a video on some iconic or controversial games. I know which one I wanted to do. I talked about in a previous video about Buck Bumble. This is one of those games that I played a lot when I was a kid. I think, so this was back when you could rent games from Blockbuster and Hollywood Video if you were into that sort of thing, but I think I had both a Blockbuster card and a Hollywood Video card. Oh, it's doing it again. It doesn't want to show. Why is it doing that? It's not, it's going full screen on my screen. There it is. Maybe it's the refresh rate. I gotta change the refresh rate to 30 hertz. Anyway, Buck Bumble.
What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity Buck Bumble.
What
about now? It's time to rock with the biggity Buck Bumble. Bum to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bum to the bump to the bump. Bum to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bum to the bump to the bump.
This was when you could, rent games. I want to say my mom rented it for me, and then we just kind of never returned it. I think that's how I got this game. So that's one thing to note. The Rumble Pack with these controllers, there's no, there's nowhere to put it. And it doesn't have any kind of a built-in rumble feature. That's kind of disappointing because that was part of the experience with some of these games is the Rumble Pack. So we're just going to forego any kind of a rumble feature for now. But this game, okay, use A to speed up, B to slow down. This game was actually a pretty cool flight simulator, and now keep in mind that these were the early days of 3D gaming. We really didn't have a whole lot to compare it to. But even by modern standards, I'd say this holds up pretty well. It's a decent little shooter flight sim. Play as a little bee here, little bumblebee. And you fly around and you gotta fight these other bugs. And you collect these little coins and power-ups so you can get other weapons. And you gotta pay attention to your speed, and also where you're going. I'm not gonna bother getting off of this. I don't think you have to. Alright, after you kill those enemies, but anyway, that is Buck Bumble, and this is the Nintendo 64 on Project64 with the N64 Bluetooth controller from Nintendo. There's other stuff you can do. You can mess around with the graphics settings, the audio settings. I've not seen any kind of overclocking in here. Maybe you can. There's all kinds of little options, and this does integrate with Project64, not Project60, this is Project64. It integrates with Launchbox also. Pretty much all standalone emulators you can use with Launchbox. But that is it. I'll probably do some other ones in the future. And maybe I'll do a video of some, just some of the iconic games on the Nintendo 64, because there were so many of them, so many defining games that really set the stage for a lot of things that we have now. But yeah, Project64 works well with my build here, and it'll certainly work well with my final build, because that's going to have a lot more processing power than this one. Well, it really doesn't need a lot more processing power. Actually, yes, it does. Project64 doesn't, but some of the other emulators that I plan to use will. So that's the main bottleneck with my build. Here's the processor. The GPU that I'm using should get me all the way through. It's I think it's a 1660 Super. But yeah, I've done so far the NES and the SNES, and this is the Nintendo 64. I've also got the Sega Genesis controller here. Once I get the emulator situation worked out with that, then I'll be doing a video on this one. Really, I'm throwing these videos together as I get a controller and emulator situation worked out. I'm just kind of taking it one at a time. I want the most accurate emulator and the most accurate controller for each system to really recreate the experience of playing the games. So I've got the GameCube controller here, wireless. There's some issues that I don't like about it, but it works well. But what I can't really do with my current build is emulate GameCube. So I'll be working on that. Also the PlayStation, I can emulate the PlayStation with my current setup, but I don't really have an accurate controller for it just yet. So I need to get that worked out, and then I'll be able to put up some kind of a video on PlayStation emulation. But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for joining me, and stay tuned for more.